Welcome back to Laurence McKenna on LFC channel, where Liverpool are going away to Southampton Sunday at 2 p.m. A lot of contributing factors in this one. Post-international break, of course, always a consideration for any set of fans. After Arsenal play their 3 p.m, after City have played their other weird game against Spurs, 5:30. Lots of players coming back from South America, obviously Endo coming back from Japan as well. Lots of people saying that if teams don't get trained together in these kind of periods, then it breaks things up. Are Liverpool going to have some of the momentum disrupted? Southampton in particular were a bit of a, well, not a weird team, but like they've had a couple of weird results against big teams. Liverpool, obviously the 4-4 towards the end of that season. I think it was actually the very last game of the season when we finished against them. They were obviously relegated that season. I think we just about stayed up in that period. They've also played some other weird games. I think Southampton counts as a bit of a bogey team. It's a bit of a hostile environment, should we say, for us. Mainly because we bought a lot of their players, but also our politics don't really mix. Like Southampton, Liverpool, two coastal cities. Maybe we see ourselves like who's the coastal guy here? Anyway, Southampton fans just don't like us. They don't like the East Scousers, do they? Not that they have that accent, but it's the way it is. And I'm fine with that. We annoy people sometimes because we are who we are. Anyway, going away to those kind of environments isn't very pleasant. And that's one thing that I think has sort of tripped up some managers entering the Premier League. I think the Forest game, not that it was like one of those difficult away games, but it was one of those games where basically Arne Slot got a bit of a rude awakening into the Premier League. Before that, I don't think he underestimated him. I don't think he's that kind of guy. I don't think he's so arrogant that he thinks our team and him are better than everyone else. But I think he's used that ever since to say to Liverpool, complacency will not be tolerated within this team. Complacency that he showed, complacency that anyone else showed, will instantly, we'll try to eradicate it. And I think that has been good predominantly for Liverpool. You see a lot of Liverpool players referencing the Nottingham Forest game. You see Slot referencing the Forest game quite a lot. And you'd hope that he uses that as a continuation into this Southampton game because, of course, immediately after, on the Wednesday, and then I think the Sunday afterwards, it's Real Madrid at Anfield, and then it's City. Two of, if not arguably, the two headline biggest games of the season, if not the biggest games of the season. And games where he's going up against elite managers with elite teams who have been a little bit hurt more recently, who are probably on their own arc, out of their own issues. And so we just need to get a result away to Southampton and put a bit of space between us and City and Arsenal and whoever else will have won that weekend before us. There are some challenges in this one. Alisson Becker, of course, is returning. He has played with the under-21s with a couple of other guys in that combo. I would have been interested to know in the comments, do you think Alisson should play in this game or would you continue Kevin Kelleher? Mainly because, do you want to get his confidence back up before, not that he needs to get his confidence back up, but you just want to get some balls in the hand before the Real Madrid game where you possibly would start him? Or do you want to make sure that we do this one, say, hey, save yourself for the Real Madrid game? What would your approach be as a manager? You probably aren't in training to know, but you get my point. Like, Trent hasn't trained with the rest of the team, so it will be Conor Bradley starting at right back, most probably. He's got injured after 25 minutes against Aston Villa, so he's out. Konate, bring him back. Virgil van Dijk, bring him back. Contract negotiations ongoing with him, as I've covered in another video today. And the impact of those contract negotiations and the news of those contract negotiations is very, very welcome. Left back, I think we probably go Andy Robertson. Mainly just because I think he's shown he's coming back up to that level of performance. He's coming back up to that peak where he's at, or at least where he's currently capable of. Scored on the international break. A lot of confidence flowing through his veins. Fantastic. Alexis will be coming back from South America, it's between 10 and 15 hours, so I'm going to say a 14-hour flight. Do we necessarily want to start him, or do you want to start a midfield of Gravenberch? Good. Curtis, decent for England, played it during the international break, wasn't particularly have to exert himself, showed a lot of good ball carrying skills, gained some confidence, comes back as a bit more of a leader yet again, did that with the under-21s for England, did it with England, great. Szoboszlai just ahead of that. Or Szoboszlai drops a little deeper, Curtis is the 10 just ahead of that. Or that rotating that I really like between the two of them, that can work really well. And with Endo coming back from Japan or the Japanese games, maybe that's not also the first option for us. Tyler Morton, probably not the overall option to play against Southampton, considering he hasn't had that much game time for Liverpool more recently, apart from the Carabao Cup. Up front, by the way, I quite like that as midfield. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Up front, I'm going to go a little rogue here. Salah, obviously. Salah isn't all-time great, and, Mo Salah, it's Mo Salah. He's been doing his talks. He's been doing all these kind of things. I just want to see Mo Salah play. I want to see as much of Mo as possible, either before he signs a new contract or he leaves at the end of the season. So keep going, Mo. Also because he'll probably see these kind of games as games that he just wants to be getting reps in so that he can be trying to score, get those assists, try and improve those Premier League numbers if, of course, he is going to leave the Premier League. In the middle, rogue shout, Diaz. There is kind of a similar argument to Diaz and Nunez, equally kind of travelling back and both of them sort of being low on sleep or whatever. Maybe you want to get Nunez's confidence up before he plays Madrid, possibly. But maybe also, I like Gakpo off the left and I like Diaz through the middle, and I just want to see what they can do against Southampton. I want to see those two rotating. We don't have Chiesa. We don't currently have Harvey Elliott, of course. So it would be nice to see him rotating back into that midfield. We don't currently have Jota because Jota, I think it's a rib injury that he's out with. I just think, So I'm going to go, I want to see Diaz in the middle. I want to see Gakpo out on the left. I want to see Salah on the right. Obviously, then you can rotate those two. If you were to bring Nunez on, you would completely change the movement up front and vice versa. We don't actually have as many options as you would think right now because of the injuries in the squad in very key places that we want to be rotating. I think Jota is a real loss for us right now. Some people weirdly saying how much longer can these injuries go on? But it wasn't like he was injured in kind of a conventional place against, was it Villa? Who was it? No, it was Chelsea. So I don't think that you can really blame him for getting a rib injury against someone. It doesn't really make much sense to me. I'm patient with Jota. I was watching the Southampton game that we played the 4-4 against them in preparation for this. And boy, oh boy, is his finishing exceptional. And it still remains exceptional. His finishes are accomplished, but also slightly rogue, slightly bizarre, slightly angled in a different manner to the way that you would normally see them. So I'm all over it. I'm all for Jota and being patient with him. The same goes for Alisson, the same goes for all these guys. I'm almost fiercely loyal to those people. But I do have a bit of a fear that we will see in the short to medium term some of these guys moved on, not only because the ruthless nature of Arne Slot, but also just because I think he's going to want to put his own stamp on this team. There will be a forward, I think a prominent forward from Liverpool that leaves in the near future, considering who we're being linked to with Cherki and Mamouche and a couple of other players during the international break, mainly because some of those guys are just having good international breaks. It's a good time for their agent to get their name out there. But also just because I think Arne Slot will want the movement and the freshness and all those kind of things that come with bringing in a new player, bringing in your guy and bringing in those things. Southampton, I think, do pose a real challenge. Despite it being 1st versus 20th in the Premier League, they are still a real challenge. They're going to sit very deep against us. They're going to make it difficult. They're going to break on us. They're certainly the kind of side who can surprise teams, and they have been trying to surprise a couple of teams in recent games. Especially if I just put in Southampton results, hopefully it didn't come up with the clinic. Look, more recently, just let me go through them, all right? Oh, come on, Google, thanks. Right. I've gone all the way back to the top. Stick with me. Beating Stoke, EFL Cup. Beating Everton. 1-0. City, they held to a 1-0 win. Remember that. That, by the way, was at, what do you call it, the Etihad? Lost to Leicester, sure. Lost to Arsenal, sure. Lost to Bournemouth, sure. Drew to Ipswich. Won against Everton. Won against, who was the last team they won against? Cardiff. In between that, they lost to Manchester United and Brentford. Nottingham Forest. Anyway, the list goes on. They also played Getafe in pre-season. Some say the Southampton of... It's not the Southampton of La Liga. They also lost Newcastle. Anyway, they're in a fairly desperate situation, but they'll be looking to steal points off very top sides at the moment because they will want to be getting back on track, and also they'll want to be closing the gap between them and everyone else. I guess the good thing for Liverpool is they then play next Friday when they'll be playing Brighton. They then play Chelsea, Villa, Spurs. Then we played them again in the quarterfinals. This is a very difficult run for Southampton. This is like, that's a murderer's row as far as I'm concerned. Brighton, Chelsea, Villa, Southampton, playing Spurs, and then Liverpool. That is a murderer's row of teams. We'll see how they come back. Post-international break, they'll have had some time together with their manager. They'll have been able to put together a little game plan to play against Liverpool in this very specific way. Maybe they'll do some of the frustrating things. I think they'll probably try and play us in that kind of frustrating way that Arne Slot teams don't like to be played. But we are a very patient, methodical, and I think more adaptable, amorphous side right now. Hopefully that is enough to overpower them. And I think the best thing we can obviously try to do is put the game away relatively early, as we did in that 4-4. And ultimately, prepare for the Real Madrid game, because that is going to be a huge mental focus for the players. Arne Slot talks about taking one game at a time, talks about not underestimating things, talks about not repeating the Forest game. This cannot be a repeat of the Forest game. Post-City, post-Arsenal. Hopefully some players coming back in a couple of weeks' time, but we'll talk about them more in other games. If you're on the sideline, sure. Again, Alexis McAllister on that yellow card, so he may not play in this game, just purely to not get... you wouldn't want him to be out for the City game. So yeah, I imagine he won't end up playing in this game. But let's see. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and I'll chat to you guys down there. See me in the Discord, see me in the Patreon, and I'll see you guys later. Much love. Goodbye.